In this lesson, we're going to create our first program that uses Entity Framework. First thing I want to do is add a new table to our database because we're not going to use the one that we created. That was just for testing. But I'm going to show you how to use your old scripts to copy from them. So go ahead and just take your regular user ID, not the new one we created, and connect to it. And let's go to databases and our course one database and tables. And this names database, we're going to just borrow that script. We're going to right click, script, create to new query window. Okay. So instead of names, I'm going to call this app user. So, and I'm going to call this app user. And the first name. And we're going to create a last name. Copy. So let's say last name. Email is okay. We're going to be adding more fields, but we'll do that when we need them. So we're going to change from names to app, USER, and I think this looks good. So let's go ahead and execute it with this little green button to run it. So it's, if we refresh, it's in there now. So we can go ahead and add us a couple of lines, or at least one line. So by edit 200 rows, and so we'll say Cindy Oaks, email is pgmr_64804@yahoo.com. We'll take another one, Jack Oaks, and he didn't have email. Okay. So we've created a new table called app user. So let's create us a new project. I started that one and I didn't like it, so we're going to create a new one. File, new, project. I'm going to call this one, this is where I want it, so I'm going to call this Hello World 2. Or we'll just say Hello World. We're not messing this one up. Okay, so we'll let this create. It'll just take a second. Okay, it finished creating and we've just got a blank form, and I was going to add a label to it. And we can just call that label 1. We don't have to change the name since it's just one label. We can make the font a little bit bigger though. Let's make it bigger, bold, and 14. And change the color to something else. How about blue? Yeah, that's a good color. Now then, let's go ahead and create our load method. We can either double click the form someplace, or we can go into the events and double click that and it will create it for us. And so let's change the label to the spaces, or the text, I mean. Okay, so now if we run that, it will just be a blank form. Okay. Okay, so that's what we want. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a data model to our project. So let's go here to the project name, and we're going to take right click, add a new item, and then the box, wizard box comes up, and we're going to hunt for down here ADO.NET Entity Data Model. That's the one we want. So, but I'm not going to call it Model 1. We're going to call it Course 1 Model. Course 1 Model is what we're going to call it. And we're going to take the EF designer from database. Now, I've already got a data connection here because I've used it. You might have to search by clicking new connection. Hopefully it will just come up default for you. But if it doesn't, you're just going to have to add the new connection. But we've got our name. It's calling it Course 1 Entities. And this is our connection screen. We are going to change that in the app config, but we're going to keep it as it is right now, okay? So click next. We're just going to use Entity Framework 6.x. Sounds good to me. Next. And now it's getting database information. If we had views, we could pull up views, which we don't. So the only table I want is the app user. I'm not going to put names in there. I mean, I can, and I'll show you what it does. That's the reason I didn't want to use it. Well, let's go ahead and finish. It's going to pull these two tables in here. So, and it's going to create me a model file that we can use. Okay. And it doesn't typically take very long to build. It depends on how big your database is. If you have a big database, it's going to take a while. This is just two tables, so it's not going to be very long. See, it's already created. Okay, so we've got this name table. Have you seen the way they renamed name 1 and stuff? That's the reason I didn't want to use him. And the entity dataset names, I didn't want to use him. So I'm just going to delete that, and all you do is just right click, delete. Delete from model. Yes. Yes. And it deleted it. And let's say that I accidentally deleted one, and I thought, oops, I didn't want to delete that. You could get it back. So like if I wanted to get that one back as soon as this goes away, all I would have to do is do a right click, and there's a context menu option that says update from database, and then we would go and it would pull our wizard back up. Okay, like for instance, we're not going to do it, but like I could say update model from database, and it would give us our wizard back. So we're just going to cancel that. So we've got our entity model now. So let's save this, and let's go back to our form. And for little things, you know, entity model can be very, very handy. For big things, I think it's just another layer, and it's not only what I think. This book I've got from 2008 says it's another layer. Of course, they think that's a good thing, and it can slow your apps down. But we're going to learn Entity because, you know, whenever you go out looking for a job, a lot of people are going to ask you, do you know how to do Entity Framework? And you'll say, yes, I've had Cindy Oaks class. I know how to do Entity Framework. So let's go ahead and get the first name and the last name and fill up this label. So we use, we don't have to add anything to the header up here for it. It's already good for us. So let's type using. We're going to call this Course 1 Entities. And I'm just going to call this E. Maybe better not use E. I'm afraid that's a reserved word. Let's use E context. Equals new Course 1 entities. And this here, there's several overloads for this, but since we're just going to take the one that we have in the app config, we don't have to use anything in this little spot right here. If we had several strings that we wanted to share with, then we would, but we don't have to. So we're going to say label text equals, first we're going to fill that in a second. Let's create a app user class, user equals new, or we don't even have to do that. We can just have user. And then we'll say here, I'm going to take that out and put it at the bottom. Here we can say user equals e context. Yep. Equals e context app user, and that's the type class name. If you had whatever class, that's the class name you're going to use. And we're going to say where, because we're just using a length, a command, I, and you don't have to use I, you can use something other than I, equals well, in this case, we're not going to do it. Oh, yeah, we will. Say I dot first name equals, with two equal signs, Cindy. And we want the first or default. Now, if you just click first, which I've seen that done a lot, and I don't know why people do it if they just don't know any better, but if you say first and it doesn't find it, it's going to crash. So always say first or default. Now here on our label text, we're going to want to say, well, if user is not equal null, because if user is null, then it would be crash, and we tried to use parts of the class, it would crash on it. So let's say if user not equal null, because if it doesn't find it, it's just going to make it null. Okay, and I'll show you about that in a second. If it's not equal null, then label one text equals user first name plus, and you could use a string format or something too else, user last name. Okay, so let's run this. Okay, so next thing I want to do, I want to show you what would happen if we had not found the user. So we're going to make a typo here, okay? And if user is not equal null, we're going to do that. Otherwise, label one text equals user not found. Okay, so let's run that. Because it's going to say user not found because we've got a typo there. It couldn't find Cindy X. Now, you know, we went through all the trouble of setting up a new user. So we're going to set up our app config file to use a user, okay? So let's fix that back. Now there's a file called app config, and there's a lot of things in here, but what we're interested in is this connection string right here. So we're going to change the security type. This says integrated security equals to. Well, we're going to use something called persist security info. So we're going to say persist PRSIST security, and then spot info, and it's going to be true. Now we're also going to add in our user name and password. So it's after the true and the semicolon, we're going to add user and a space and ID equals, and we're going to say course COURSE1 underscore user. That is the user that we set up. And then we're going to put a semicolon, and we're going to type the word password, PASSWORD equals course1, and another semicolon. Now we're going to save that and make sure that it runs for us. Because if we got a typo or we type something wrong, it will not run, it will crash. Okay. Okay, so it ran and it found that. So let's have a typo in here. So we got a wrong password and a wrong user. So it's taking a little longer, so it means it's going to crash. See, we crashed. It says the underlying provider failed to open. Failed user for custom one user XXX. Okay, so let's fix that so that it'll work next time. Fix the password and fix that. And let's make sure it'll run for us again. Okay, so it's fixed. And then you're just going to forget about app config and you'll forget all about it. That's what I do. So in the next video or the next lesson, we're going to look at using a little bit of SQL. So I will see you then.